Hey book lovers, Kaylee here and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. A couple of weeks ago my friend Tara over at the 3 bookshelves, which I will leave a link to get to her videos above my head here, I believe is where it's gonna go. Anyway, she had tagged me to do Plutrich's Wheel of Emotion, and I think I'm saying that right? Yeah, Plutrich's. I don't know, I'm not really good with names all the time. But anyway, she tagged me to do this video, so here we go. If you're not familiar with Plutrich's Wheel of Emotion, I do have my handy dandy little cheat sheet here. I'm going to put an image right beside me here so you can take a look at it in all of its glory. We are actually going to be focusing on the rings that include joy, trust, fear, surprise, sad, disgusted, angry, and anticipation. Now I'm not gonna lie, I actually did have a bit of difficulty picking books for each of them because things like fear, I don't really get scared during the reading process, or at least I haven't been scared yet. Disgust was very hard for me to figure out, and I think there was 1 or 2 others, so it took me a bit to get my list, but I have it right here, and let's get into it. The first one is really easy, and that is joy. So this is a book that brings you joy. I had so many choices that I could pick for this one because there are so many books that bring me joy, but I figured I would go to the one that I have reread the most and that I have just been obsessed with for like a decade or more. I think I'm just trying to think. I think it's been like 15 years since I read this book for the first time. Oh boy. But every time I read it, it's a must-read every year for me. It always just brings me joy because I love the characters, I love the story, and it just makes me happy to return. So that book is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. I don't see many people talking about this book, but I absolutely love it. If you're not familiar with the Study series, it actually follows a character by the name of Yelena, and she ends up being sent into prison, and she stays in the castle where she is basically awaiting her fate. When it comes to the time when her execution is nigh, she actually ends up being given a choice. She can either be killed for her crimes, or she can become the food taster. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I think I would rather be the food taster. There's a more chance of living in that scenario, and that's exactly the choice that Yelena makes. And there is some romance and action and adventure, and it's just a really fun ride. The second emotion is trust, and this is actually another one that I could pick a plethora of books from, or authors, or themes, I guess, or genres. It's very loose what you can do with these different emotions, but I ended up going with an author, and there's not going to be any new books coming out from this author, but every time I return to her stories, I trust that I am in for a great read, a little bit of romance, and just a fun overall story. And that is Anything by Jane Austen. So I just grabbed the book that was on the top of my Jane Austen pile, and that is obviously Pride and Prejudice. This one needs no introduction, or at least I hope it doesn't, because so many people have read it, and some people don't like it, but I find more people love it than hate it, and I love it. But I also love Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Northanger Abbey. There's just any Jane Austen I read and I'm in a happy, happy place. Okay, so the next emotion is fear. So a book that frightened you. And this is one that I had such a difficult time with because I don't get scared very easily with books. And the only way that I could really think of to fill this category is to go like really deep within my own emotions and sort of get real with you guys. And that book that I'm going to save for this column is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. Now you might think, Kaylee, this is a book that makes you sad or makes you reflect or any of these other emotions. Why would you be afraid of it? And like I said, I'm gonna get real with you. I am afraid that I am so much like Louisa, but that I am never gonna get a kick in my butt to make a change. Like, I'm afraid that I am not going to get out of my rut like Louisa was able to. I know she went through hell and got out of her rut in one of the most depressing ways, but I just feel like She ends up living her life to her potential, and she just goes for it with no fear, and I'm afraid that that will never be me. Okay, let's move on to something happier, with something that surprised me. I didn't think that I would really have many options for this one either, but I ended up not being able to choose between two, generally because I don't surprise easily the same way that I'm not frightened easily. Like, for the most part, in a plot, I can see a lot of things coming, and it's not often that something catches me off guard. But I'm going to actually pick two books, one for the reason that the ending surprised me, shockingly, and the other one was one that I was surprised that I was going to like so much. Now, both of these I've read within the last month, so that's why now I have two instead of just the one I was originally going to do, and that was Everless, and this is by Sara Holland. You've probably heard me talk about this book a few times, but I'm going to talk about it again. The ending ended up really surprising me because I went into this book with one sort of expectation of what I was going to get out of it, and it ended up opening up into a massive storyline that could go in so many directions. So while it was an easy read and a quick read, it was very good for even just like the last few chapters, and I'm assuming what the next book is going to be. So this is one book that surprised me. And the second book that surprised me was actually Illuminae by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. And this book I read in a night because I was not expecting to get so into it. I was intrigued with the idea of the format of the writing, and I did not think that it was going to have such an impact on me, but it really did, which shocked me. I guess surprised me, shocked me, same diff. But I was just so enthralled with this story. I'm going to talk about it a bit more in my March wrap-up, which I think I'm going to be filming next. But this book had my heart pumping. I laughed so much, I cried, I was shocked, like, I was surprised with how much I liked this book. I was just expecting to be entertained, but I am super invested. The next emotion on the wheel is sad, so a book that made you sad, basically. And I could pick so many books. I mean, even if you go back to my video of the 5 books that have made me cry, I mean, I've cried in more than those, but those were some of the big ones for me. Those all made me sad, but I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into this emotion, and I really wanted to think about something that just really saddened me to my core, and I think for that I had to go with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, because it was the last book in the original Harry Potter series. When this book came out, we didn't think we were going to get another one. We thought that we left Hogwarts behind forever, and it was heartbreaking. And I just absolutely love the Harry Potter series. You're hard-pressed to find people who don't. I mean, the way that J.K. Rowling has just changed the world with her writing is so inspirational, and I was so sad when this series came to an end. I actually even worked the midnight release of this book, and I was working at a Shoppers Drug Mart at the time, and so we weren't actually a bookstore, but we got a bunch in stock that we had a midnight release party for, and I was dressed up as Hermione, and I had my hair like teased to the nines, so it was like this big fro on my head, and I was checking customers out once it hit midnight, and it was such a rush, but it was so saddening, and also the fact that people started reading them immediately once they got them. I had to try and tune out as much as I could so then that way I wasn't spoiled, because I would have to wait until the next day to read it, and I devoured it that day. I remember it all so vividly. It was such a fun event. It was bittersweet, and yeah. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, that is the book that I'm gonna say has made me sad. But also happy, because I mean, how can you not be happy when reading Harry Potter? So yeah, like I said, bittersweet, but it was sad for the end of an era. Next emotion is Disgust. This one was also very difficult for me because I don't get disgusted that easily at books, so I ended up picking one that is a series that I actually really love, but there is a portion of the first book that actually left my stomach nauseous and just made me feel really uncomfortable, and that's the closest that I could think of to disgust as an emotion when I was reading, and that book is Outlander, and that's by Diana Gabaldon. Wow, I said that weird. Diana Gabaldon, and there is a scene, well, there's a sequence of scenes nearing the end of the story that I'm not going to get into because it's major spoiler territory, but something happens to a character over a series of time, and it's just so heartbreaking, and it made a guttural emotion come out of me. Like, I still can't fully get over it. It was written amazingly well. It was something that was needed to drive the plot forward, and I think it was done in the best way it could be done, but it still disgusted me, for lack of a better word. It does not take away my love for Outlander, but those scenes will haunt me. Okay, the next emotion I need to prepare myself for, because I am vehemently against this book, and that works perfectly for the next emotion because the next emotion is anger. Now, the book that makes me the most angry in the entire universe, that I seem to go into a white-hot rage whenever it's brought up. I'm trying very hard to just be super chill, that's why I've got my tea, but it's the worst book that I think exists in the history of the world. It was never edited, and I don't think it should be around. And that book, I can't even find my copy, and I can't be bothered to search for it. Yeah, so I'm just gonna put an image here. 50 Shades of Grey. It's such trash, and it's not like, oh, I'm trash for this trope or whatever. It's just garbage. It's the worst piece of literature that I think has ever existed. I get into a tirade anytime that this book is brought up, which is surprisingly often. When I first got it, it was because so many people had raved about it, and I thought, hey, let's give it a try and see what all of the fuss is about. So I bought the first book, and the cashier at the store said, why aren't you getting the rest of the series? Because it's amazing, you're gonna be hooked. And I said, no, let me give it a try first and we'll see. And then I read it, and I absolutely hated it. The whole idea behind it is, I think everybody knows by now, it was Twilight fan fiction. She ended up self-publishing, so it never went under an editor's eye. So she has horrible, egregious grammar mistakes. She does not know how to keep a plot going properly, and she repeats the same thing. I just kept thinking, if Anastasia bites her lip one more time, I'm going to hurl this book across the room. And I find books sacred, so I would never say that about a book, but this book made me so angry. Like Anastasia, she bit her lip all of the time. She kept talking to her friggin' inner goddess. I can't. And then, oh my gosh, and then the fact that everybody thinks it's so romantic. Like, it's not romantic. It's about an abusive relationship where consent is not given, but they make her think, like they make Anastasia think that, oh, no, this is okay. This is fine. Like, she stands up for herself a couple of times, but after that she's like, oh, I love him so much. He's so romantic. He's taking me on helicopter rides, and he's buying basically murder equipment at my store. And that's okay with me because he's rich and handsome and says that I could change him. God, it's such crap. It's so bad. Like, it's the worst book in existence. And I mean, I could get into more about the fact that everybody thinks that it's so romantic and all of this other stuff. I know it's a bestseller and everything else, this, that, and the other thing. But one thing that just really, really irks me is the fact that everyone thinks it's so racy. Like, they're like, oh, man, I'm so flush after reading this story because it's so racy. I mean, these scenes, they're so evocative and erotic and blah blah blah. And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself as I'm reading it, hey, I've read YA that's racier and more, like, intense than this. Easily, I have read YA that is more intense than that book. It's really bad. Like, I can't even. Like, my friend Tara, who tagged me for this video, she also used 50 Shades of Grey as her angry, and I wanted to do something different, but there's no other book that has made me more angry than 50 Shades of Grey. I absolutely loved it when she did her live tweeting of reading the book, and it made me so happy to read it as she was tweeting, which I would recommend if you're interested. She still has the Twitter active, so you can pop on over and take a look, because all of her thoughts were a lot of what was going through my head. And the Twitter handle for that, I kind of helped her come up with. It's at 50 Shades of Suck, because it sucks. But I'm ranting now, so I'm gonna stop and let's move on to the last emotion. I'm gonna keep my tea in my hand for this last emotion because I don't have a physical book to hold, because the emotion is anticipation. So this is a book that I am anticipating, and I am going to say that one of the books that I am anticipating is actually the restart of a series. Well, kind of a restart of a series. Basically, Cassandra Clare, who wrote, obviously, the Shadowhunter stories and then Infernal Devices and all that fun stuff, she is continuing on my favorite, the Infernal Devices, and it's time jumping, but we're still going to be able to see the characters that we love from the Infernal Devices, but just a little bit later on. And I absolutely love that prequel series. Like, of her Shadowhunter books, those ones are by far my favorite. So she's continuing it on, and it is the Last Hours series, and it starts with Chain of Gold, I believe? Yes, Chain of Gold. And I'm so excited, and I just want it to be here, and I'm just really, really happy because the end of Clockwork Princess left me emotionally ruined, and I need to return to that time, and I am so excited, and I'm really, really anticipating it, and I can't get over it. I can't get over the fact that she's writing more stories for those characters. Okay, now getting to the end of this tag, I realized I did not really fully think of who I want to do this tag, who I want to tag. So give me a second, I'm gonna take a look. Okay, I'm going to tag Haley in Bookland, Books and Looks, and Books and Quills. So if you guys can shout out to those booktubers and let them know that they are tagged, that would be great. And I'm gonna tag anybody else who wants to take part of this tag because it's fun, it really makes you think. And even if you want to, leave a comment down below with what books you think tie in for those emotions for you. And as always, be sure to like this video if you did, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more because I put out new videos every weekend. And until next time, keep reading.